Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. This is Zukradowski of WeAreChange.org, and of course, with all the latest news coming out of Syria and all the talk of false flags, what I wanted to do in this specific video is give you an update on everything that is happening with American foreign policy, what most likely will happen next, as well as our attempt to give you the truth that, of course, you're most likely not going to hear on the mainstream media. Because I don't know if you've been paying attention, but the media pretty much just promotes controlled opposition groups rather than real people questioning authority. And with online censorship being rampant now, of course, against real groups and news organizations who actually are questioning the authority and mainstream media narratives, with, of course, manipulated search algorithms, if not just pure censorship. And honestly, we are still all very lucky to have this mode of communication and for you to still be receiving this form of communication. And that's why before we start, I wanted to remind everyone to please go to wearechange.org and sign up on our email list with just one click of a button. The link to that will also be in our description of this video that you could click on and sign up. Since, the contents of this video and all the other videos we do, they're not really neocon establishment friendly. So before we get deleted down the memory hole, please again sign up on our email list where we actually send you behind the scenes content that no one else gets unless you're on the email list, and provides us a way to not get censored, because we've been censored a lot. Like a lot. Okay, now back to the original topic of discussion. I do have to say, it is fascinating to see the media establishment, especially here in the United States, obsess about cheap GMO fast food McDonald's and Donald Trump, rather than actual major issues with American foreign policy that are up for debate, that are being contradicted within Donald Trump's administration. Those issues, no. Yeah. Let's focus the national discussion on this trivial, idiotic issue rather than, the actual lives of other human beings. And just with that kind of editorializing, what else do you need to know when it comes to understanding that the mainstream media is the biggest enemy of humanity? But hell, they give us an opportunity to actually talk about the real issues, which we're going to do. Okay, now one of the biggest developments that happened surrounding American U.S. foreign policy is, of course, the events that unfolded yesterday in Syria, where allegedly an ISIS suicide bomber blew himself up inside of Syria, killing 4 U.S. personnel, injuring 3 others, while killing 14 other bystanders. An attack that some people are calling a false flag and an attempt to convince Donald Trump to keep U.S. troops in Syria, since Donald Trump almost a month ago announced that U.S. troops will be leaving Syria. A major, astonishing move that has really shaken up the establishment and also other neocons that were utterly outraged by this announcement, along with the mainstream media, while the American public didn't even know that U.S. troops were even in that country. That's ultimately the state of American foreign policy right now, which is not the best of states, since, of course, there wasn't even a public decision or even a public discussion to have U.S. troops in Syria in the first place, and there's actually no argument to even have them there now. But regardless of all of that, yesterday's attack has put everything into question. And what's really interesting about this latest attack that happened in Manbij is that the city has been ISIS-free for about 2 years and is the city where the U.S. soldiers were going to pull out of first, and not out of Al-Tanf, which is actually closer to ISIS territory, where there's an actual pocket of ISIS territory and would have been very easily and strategic to strike. And I do believe there is some worth questioning the validity of this attack or who actually did it, because honestly speaking here, because this sounds like the most idiotic, unstrategic thing to do on the hand of ISIS, right as the U.S. is on the verge of leaving, to do this attack, which of course many neocons and mainstream media establishment types are using as an excuse to keep troops there. And allegedly, Donald Trump is furious over, of course, the latest U.S. casualties in Syria, since he did order U.S. troops to withdraw there immediately, and that never happened. But if it did, there would still be 4 Americans still alive today, and there isn't. And there's 3 other severely injured and 14 other innocent people who were caught up, who lived in that town, who also were killed. And why did this happen? Well, because of Donald Trump's own national security advisor that he himself selected, John Bolton, of course, interfering and contradicting Donald Trump and ultimately saying, no, the U.S. troops aren't leaving until, of course, they could secure the safety of Israel and the Kurds. And, of course, that argument is absolutely ridiculous, and I'll explain why, of course, later in this video. It is also interesting to note that Israel also made a public statement saying that if the United States helps them get the Golan Heights region, which is a territory that has been in dispute between Israel and Syria, that then they could leave, which absolutely makes no sense from a security point of view. And people need to be aware of the fact that John Bolton is an absolute bloodthirsty, incredulous human being who does not give a damn about peace and prosperity and ultimately does the work of Satan and others of the military-industrial complex to keep us in perpetual war and conflict and blood that absolutely serves no one except the most wicked on our planet. Sorry there. And this is why John Bolton even came out just a few days ago that he was the one who even came to the Pentagon asking them for an official plan to attack Iran, which absolutely makes no sense from a security point of view. And of course, his pro-war epithets are being repeated by the mainstream media that, of course, is bought and sold by them. Also by people like Marco Rubio, Lindsey Graham, and other neoconservatives that are saying this is a case for the United States to stay in Syria indefinitely. And of course, we're hearing the galvanizing language that we, quote, must finish the job, that we, of course, must fight radical Islamic terrorism, that we must fight ISIS on the ground before these terrorists come over to the United States. And all of those arguments are just absolute hooey. And of course, we're saying this because we've been reporting, even, of course, since 2014. You can watch this video. It will be in the description below of this video, where we predicted that, of course, there's going to be a radical Islamic terrorist group coming out of Syria named ISIS that is being supported and backed by the United States. And we documented for years photos, videos, eyewitnesses, so many internal documents, and time again proved that knowingly the United States and U.S. intelligence organizations help fund, build, and grow radical Islamic elements and ISIS inside of Syria for regime change against Bashar al-Assad, which, of course, failed and helped spurred global terrorism all over the Western world. It wasn't just the United States, it was also Israel, which also conveniently, just recently, on January 14th, even admitted that, yeah, they armed Syrian rebels. Most of the arms with, of course, to radical Islamic terrorists. Saudi Arabia did the same. The U.S. mainstream media whitewashed this, called people like myself conspiracy theorists for even bringing up those facts, bringing up the documents, the photos, the videos, and everything else you needed to hear from first-hand point of view of people who were there on the ground saying, hey, they're fighting with U.S. Weapons and Israeli weapons and are getting support from Saudi Arabia. And guess who else? Turkey as well. And Turkey, of course, is stuck in a whole other conflict in that region. And their main prerogative, of course, is not to fight ISIS, which they claim it is. Their main prerogative is, of course, to fight the Kurds. And this is why even Turkey, just a few years ago, was buying oil from the Islamic State and helping them not only with arms but also manpower traverse the Turkey border into Syria, empowering those radical Islamic terrorists. And now seeing the United States and also Turkey, who, by the way, have fomented this problem to the current state that it is in and help the rise of global jihadism, mainly from ISIS, which we have seen commit terrorist attacks all over the Western world, mainly because of the United States and Turkey. So hearing them say now that, yeah, we have to fight. No, they're absolutely just full of crap. And we have to understand that. We have to understand that from a bigger perspective to stop this from happening on a bigger basis. We have to understand that a lot of ISIS figures are escaping from U.S. backed detention inside of Syria, that a lot of them are so rich that they literally just pay off people and are able to escape. Since, billions of dollars from you, the American taxpayer, was sent over there for them, they're now using the money to escape. And also, you have to realize, Kurdish groups are also threatening to even release ISIS militants if the United States pulls out of Syria. This is a direct threat and warning by some of the Kurdish groups, as of course US troops were pulling out of that area, which has been peaceful before. And let's be honest here, ISIS has been a very convenient tool, not only for Turkey, but also for the United States, to use as they please to justify their bigger geopolitical agendas. And the geopolitical agenda, the foreign policy agenda of Turkey, is very important in this region since a lot of stability depends on it. And Turkey and Erdogan haven't been the most stable decision makers since, of course, also Turkey has been readying their troops on the border with Syria, waiting for the United States to leave so they could, of course, attack the Kurds, which they have had historical conflicts with. And of course, their prerogative is the Kurds and not fighting ISIS in that region. This has only furthered the complication of this situation, which Donald Trump has even warned Turkey not to do, and has even promised to devastate Turkey's economy if they move forward with their war plans against the Kurds. Turkey has responded by, of course, establishing better relations with Venezuela, using gold in order to avoid future sanctions against their country, finalizing a deal between the two countries, which is interesting since, of course, Turkey is also a NATO ally. And this bigger drama is still unfolding, which of course is all bigger power plays made on the negotiation table. And we have to understand here, Turkey, within the last 3 years, has launched military operations into northern Syria and has taken territory away from the Kurds and do have their sights on expanding their role in that region. But for right now, it looks like there is a security zone agreed between the United States and Turkey. And this pullout is showing to be more complicated than, of course, anyone else expected, with, of course, Israel at first sounding like it was okay with the decision, now complicating it, pulling the Golan Heights into the debate somehow here. Turkey, of course, set on their main foreign policy directive, which is to go after and eliminate the Kurds. And we are seeing very duplicitous bipolar language from Donald Trump, who has been going back and forth, pretty much testing the water, and has not been very decisive on this big goal that he has announced will happen. And according to Senator Rand Paul, this will move forward in a, quote, positive anti-war direction, with even Senator Rand Paul saying that yesterday he hasn't been prouder of President Donald Trump after his meeting with him, where he convinced him he is opposed to this foreign war and wants to put America first by declaring victory in Afghanistan and Syria, and that, quote, he will move forward with this promise, which, if you're an optimist, sounds like very good news. But again, the critical aspect of me here does have to bring up the point that both scenarios could be true, and both scenarios could be as devastating, with also talks of military contractors replacing U.S. troops in that region, which of course will keep it just as convoluted, just as explosive as a situation as it already is. Now, I do feel like Donald Trump is testing out the waters here, especially with the major decision announcing U.S. troops will be pulled out, and he is waiting to get feedback from the people on, of course, these major decisions. And that's why we're seeing neocons in the mainstream media, the Washington Post, CNN, and the New York Times keep saying, stay in, stay in, stay in, stay in, while, of course, regular people don't want war or are even oblivious to the fact that the United States is involved in so many of these actual wars. And not being a corporate media show, these wars are not good and don't serve the benefit of anyone. So that is, of course, my particular bias and take on this very specific issue. And from the analysis that I have examined here, I do think that not in the short term, but I think in the long term, there will be a victory especially in ending these illegal wars. But that's just my point of view. If you think I'm wrong, let me know why in the comment section below. I always answer comments within the first hour that a video is out. So make sure you subscribe and click the notification button to be a part of the discussion. Thank you, all of you amazing human beings who signed up on our email list and are donating to us on wearechange.org/donate, because if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't be here, we wouldn't exist, we wouldn't have a voice, we wouldn't be able to tell you these important truths. And the only reason we're able to is because of your help, your PayPal, your cryptocurrencies, you guys checking out Change Media University, our email list, and just checking out this page that you could support us. And because you do, and because we're still here somehow, even though with the crazy amount of censorship, that's why I love you guys. Thank you again so much for watching. Stay tuned for more here on youtube.com/we are change.